Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam to all the Vaishnavas listening to me. Today we will be starting from third question of the 67th chapter, which is Empiric Knowledge. Before that, let us offer our prayers at the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev and all our previous acharyas. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्त श्रीराधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तद्काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो श्रीवैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So third question is, can one attain pure knowledge as long as one is inquisitive? Answer is, material knowledge consists of all physical knowledge. The original knowledge is called transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge, when perverted, becomes material knowledge. The 24 material truths put forth by Sankhya philosophy is entirely material knowledge. When this knowledge is refined through samadhi, it awakens transcendental knowledge. This transcendental knowledge is scientific. As long as one is inquisitive, one is still under the clutch of ignorance. Destruction of ignorance and the awakening of scientific transcendental knowledge takes place simultaneously. After receiving this knowledge, when one relishes it, then it is called devotional service. Therefore, there is difference between scientific transcendental knowledge and devotional service. Fourth question is, what kind of janana is condemned by the Vaishnavas? Answer is, the knowledge which is often condemned by Vaishnavas is not pure knowledge. They condemn that material knowledge by which the materialists try to ascertain the inconceivable absolute truth. If it is said to a thief that human beings are nonsense, this does not mean that all human beings are nonsense, but certainly the thieves are. Fifth question is, what kind of janana is condemned by the devotional literatures? Answer is, considering loving devotional service and pure knowledge has equal impure knowledge has been condemned in the devotional literatures. Pure knowledge is never referred as janana kanda. Sixth question, what is pratyag and parag chaitanya? Answer is, Chaitanya is of two kinds, Pratyag and Parag. When Vaishnavas are absorbed in prema, at that time Pratyag Chaitanya or internal knowledge arises. When one's absorption in prema is broken, he then comes to his external senses and Parag Chaitanya arises. Parag Chaitanya is not Chit but a shadow of Chit. Seventh question is, are the pastimes of the Supreme Lord measurable by human knowledge? Answer is, human knowledge is most insignificant. If one tries to measure the prowess and pastimes of the Supreme Lord, then one will certainly fall into illusion. Eighth question, what is the difference between the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman and the Supreme Lord? Answer is, knowledge of the impersonal Brahman is just a branch of knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Ninth question is, where does Kaivalya or merging into Brahman exist? Answer is, Kaivalya or merging into the Brahman constitutes the line of demarcation between the world of limitation and the transcendental world. 10th question. What is the fate of those who follow the system Jananakanda? Answer is, the followers of Jananakanda who are entangled in the conception of merging into the existence of Brahman practice false renunciation in order to destroy their individuality. They neither achieve anything in this life nor in the next. They simply waste their life while contemplating on some indirect thoughts. 11th question. What is the danger in trying to go to Goloka through Janana or Yoga? Answer is, there are 10 tridents in 10 directions that prevent and disappoint those who are aspiring for an entrance into Goloka through meditations without the grace of Krishna. Self-conceited people who try to reach this region through the paths of yoga, meditation and Janana, empiric knowledge, are baffled in their attempts, being pierced by the 10 tridents. 12th question. Who are demigods and demons? What is the difference between their goal of life and the process to achieve it? Answer is, the devotees of the Supreme Lord are the demigods. Those who are envious of the Supreme Lord are the demons. Just as there is always a principle of opposition between the demigods and the demons, similarly, there is also a principle of opposition between their sadhana and sadhya. The sadhana of the demons is to torture the devotees and to kill cows and brahmanas, and their sadhya is to attain liberation. The sadhana of the devotees is devotional service and their sadhya is love of God. Those who endeavor to achieve that liberation necessarily take shelter of dishonest sadhana in the form of cultivating impersonal knowledge like the non-devotees. With that, we complete 67th chapter and move on to 68th chapter, which is called Mystic Yoga and Observing Vows. First question. Is yoga not an unbroken process? Answer is, yoga is one, not two. Yoga is a particular path for spiritual cultivation. The first stage of yoga is desireless karma or karma yoga. When it is mixed with the knowledge and renunciation, it becomes known as Janana Yoga, which is the second stage. When Janana is mixed with the meditation in the form of remembering the Lord, it is called Astanga Yoga, which is the third stage of yoga. When it is mixed with love for the Supreme Lord, it becomes Bhakti Yoga. The entire process, which consists of various stages, is called yoga. Second question. When are karma, janana and yoga capable of awarding secondary fruit? Answer is, if karma, janana and yoga and their respective processes do not aim at devotional service, they cannot award any kinds of fruit to their followers. If devotional service to Krishna becomes their ultimate goal, then only are able to award some secondary fruits. Third question is, in which scriptures is Hatha Yoga described? Answer is, Hatha Yoga is described in the Sakta and Saiva Tantras as well as the scriptures written from those tantras, like Hatha Yoga, Deepika and Yoga Chintamani. Fourth question is, what is the difference between Raj Yoga and Hatha Yoga? Answer is, the yoga practiced by philosophers and Puranic scholars is called Raj Yoga. Yoga prescribed by the Tantric Panditas is called Hatha Yoga. Fifth question is, why is the path of yoga fearful and path of devotional service fearless? Answer is Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahar, Dhyana, Dharana and Samadhi. These are Astanga Yoga. It is true that by these practices one may achieve peace, but sometimes in the process one may be overwhelmed by lust and greed. Then instead of attaining peace, one may enjoy some yogic opulence for some time before ultimately falling. However, in the devotional service of Lord Krishna, there is no fear of irrelevant fruits, for the service of Krishna certainly attain peace. Sixth question. Where is the danger in Hatha Yoga? Answer is, if someone practices Hatha Yoga in this way, he can do many wonderful feats. By seeing the results, one can believe this. By practicing mudras, so many kinds of powers are acquired that the practitioner cannot make further progress. Seventh question. What is the fate of a practitioner of yoga who tries to separate his attachment for Vaikuntha from his life? Answer is, thought and practice like dhyana, pratyahara and dharana are advised for attaining the end result of awakening one's spiritual attachment, and many people practice these. But they don't sufficiently discuss how to attain spiritual attachment. That is why yogis often become captivated by yogic opulence and ultimately fail to attain spiritual attachment. On the other hand, Vaishnava practices are superior. You see, any sadhana is just a special activity. One may develop attachment to whatever activities are required to be performed in human life, and one may only think and labor hard while endeavoring to achieve the absolute truth. Are those who work in this way able to quickly awaken spiritual attachment? If the sadhaka keeps his attempts to develop spiritual attachment as a separate activity in his life, then he will be pulled by material attachment on the one hand and spiritual consciousness on the other. Eighth question. What are the limbs of Raj Yoga? Answer is, Samadhi is the main process of Raj Yoga. In order to attain Samadhi, one first practices Yama, then Niyama, then Asana, then Pranayama, then Pratyahara, then Dhyana, and then Dharana. One must practice these processes. Ninth question. How does one attain Samadhi through Raj Yoga? Answer is, in the state of Samadhi in Raj Yoga, truth beyond material nature is realized. In that state, one can taste unalloyed love. That subject cannot be described by words. 10th question. What is the process followed by the ascetics? How many kinds of yoga processes are there? Answer is, with great distress, the ascetics want to loosen the knots of their karma. The ascetics practice Vedic Panchagni Vidya, Nididhyasana and Vedic Yoga. Yoga such as Astanga Yoga, Saranga Yoga, Dattatreyi Yoga and Goraksanarthi Yoga have been proposed in the Shastras. Among them, Hatha Yoga mentioned in the Tantras and Raj Yoga propounded by Patanjali have been widely accepted in the world. 11th question. What is the difference between yoga and path of devotional service? Answer is, the main difference between yoga and devotional service is this. In the strict practice of yoga, when one attains samadhi by giving up false designations, he attains his constitutional position, that is prema, is awakened. There is fear, however, that is the long process of giving up false designations. The sadhaka may become captivated by insignificant byproducts and fall down before attaining the ultimate goal. On the other hand, in devotional service, there is only discussion of prema. Devotional service is simply the cultivation of the science of love of God. When all activities are meant for cultivating the ultimate result, there is no fear of useless results. The means are the end, and the end is the means. 12th question. What does one gain by achieving perfection in the practice of yoga? Answer is, the domination over material nature attained in the practice of yoga is only a temporary result. In that position, the ultimate result may be far off, and time and again impediments are observed. In the path of yoga, there are hindrances at every step. First, at the time of practicing yama and niyama, religiosity is awakened, and as a result of attaining this insignificant result, one becomes known as religious, even though no attempt has been made to achieve prema. 13th question. When do one's sensual endeavors diminish? Answer is, the path of devotional service is to cultivate love of the absolute truth. The more the attachment for such cultivation of love increases, the more the endeavor for the senses diminishes. 14th question. What is the purpose of observing vows and fasting? Answer is, taking bath in the morning, circumambulating, offering obeisances are exercise related to bodily vows. Due to the imbalance of any of the bodily elements, one falls sick. In order to check such sickness, vows like fasting on 10th day of both the waning and waxing moon, fasting on the full moon, and fasting on Mondays have been prescribed. Therefore, it is beneficial to either completely fast or make changes in the routine of eating, etc. on those particular days, and engages the mind in thinking of the Supreme Lord with controlled senses. 15th question. What is the aim of observing the month-long vow? Answer is, the month-long vow consists of 24 Ekadashis and the 6 other appearances days including Janmashtami. The only aim of observing such vows is spiritual cultivation. 16th question is, what is the gradual procedure for attaining renunciation? Answer is, by following the body-related vows of Chaturmasya, the full moon day, and every 10th day of the waning and waxing moon, one becomes habituated in the process of renunciation. First, one should gradually give up desire for eating, sleeping, and so on. Thereafter, one should give up desire for all happiness and practice renunciation by accepting only those material enjoyments which are required to maintain his body and soul together. When this method is completed, then one attains the platform of renunciation. With that, we complete 68th chapter and move on to 69th chapter, which is called False Renunciation. First question is, what harm does false renunciation cause to a practitioner of devotional service? What is the benefit of giving up false renunciation? Answer is, Markata Vairagya or false renunciation is a major weakness of the heart. By carefully giving it up, one gains strength in the path of one's bhajana. Then all kinds of enemies of the living entities, such as duplicity, the cheating propensity, and desire for name and fame, become defeated. In this way, the living entities attain pure devotional service and thereby make their lives successful. Second question, should a renunciate watch cinema or a theatre? Answer is, there is no doubt that a renunciate who watches women and their acting in a cinema hall or in a drama theatre also behaves like a false renunciate. The renunciate who indulges in hearing and watching plays and dramas is certainly at fault. Third question. Can one formally accept the dress of a renunciate before reaching the platform of bhava? Answer is, just by identifying oneself as a renunciate does not make one renunciate. If one has not automatically developed detachment from sense gratification as a result of awakening of his bhava, it is illegal to accept the dress of a renunciate. Fourth question is it proper to take sannyasa in an immature stage when the desire for association with women is still present in one's heart? Answer is, if propensity for associating with women is present in any corner of one's heart, then he should not take sannyasa. Stay at home, try to give up false renunciation, and make progress in the spiritual life by relishing the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. There is no need to take sannyasa in a hurry and in an improper time. Fifth question. Whose acting of renunciation is prone to transform into false renunciation? Answer is, if a householder leaves his family life before developing strong natural detachment, then his renunciation is prone to transform into false renunciation. Sixth question. What is the symptom of a false renunciate? Answer is, thinking of sense gratification within the heart, secretly enjoying the company of women, and externally putting on the signs of a renunciate like Kopina and Chadara are symptoms of a false renunciate. Seventh question. Who is a false renunciate? Answer is, a renunciate who intimately converses with women is a false renunciate. Eighth question is, can only a sannyasi become a false renunciate? What is the householder's false renunciation? Answer is, there are two kinds of false renunciates: the householder's false renunciation and the sannyasi's false renunciation. Among the householder, those who are unnecessarily eager to leave home are outrageous. Ninth question. Can one become free from sense gratification just by wearing the dress of a renunciate? Answer is, simply by wearing the dress of a renunciate does not make a devotee free from sense gratification, because renunciates often collect and save objects for sense enjoyment. On the other hand, many persons resemble sense enjoyers but utilize everything in the worship of Lord Hari in the mood of detachment. 10th question is, what is the harm if one gives up the gradual path due to the desire for liberation? Answer is, if one gives up the gradual path due to desire for liberation, then false renunciation overpowers the living entity and makes them abominable. 11th question. Who are unsteady renunciates? Answer is, those who take sannyas by being induced by temporary detachment born from quarrel, distress, lack of wealth, disease and accident in the process of getting married are unsteady renunciates. Their detachment does not last long. Very soon they become pseudo renunciates. 12th question. Who are conventional renunciates? Answer is, those who become controlled by intoxication and thus become useless in the society, try to practice exhibition by symptoms of devotional service to Hari under the control of intoxication, and try to execute loving devotional service under the shelter of material attachment. They are called conventional renunciates, even though they put on the signs of a renunciate. 13th question. Who is a disgrace to the Vaishnava Dharma, and what is cause of disturbance in the society? Answer is, one who accepts the sign of a renunciate before he actually becomes detached is certainly the cause of disturbance in the society and is a disgrace to the Vaishnava Dharma. 14th question is, who are responsible for creating doubts in the minds of the people about the character of the renounced saintly persons? Answer is, it is extremely necessary for the Babajis in the renounced order of life to give up greed for women, wealth, palatable food, and material happiness. Since some renounced saintly persons have these possessions, people of the world develop a doubt in the character of the renounced saintly persons. 15th question. Is the custom of keeping maidservants by the Babajis who live in the cottage approved by Vaishnava Dharma? Answer is, it is extremely inauspicious for Babajis who live in cottages to keep maidservants. In some cottages, the daughter of a Babaji from his previous ashrama lives as a maidservant. A real renunciate never lives in a cottage where nothing works without women. To intimately enjoy the association of the opposite sex on the pretext of serving the Supreme Lord and the saintly persons becomes the goal of all such activities. 16th question. Can one get any result simply by subduing material attachments? Answer is, it is not that subjugating material attachment awakens one's spiritual attachment. Many people take shelter of renunciation just by subjugate material attachment, but they do not try to increase their spiritual attachment. This ends is in misfortune. 17th question. Is there any use of renunciation if there is no spiritual goal? Answer is, although by the process of pratyahara one achieves control of the senses, if prema is lacking, this is called dry or insignificant renunciation. The reason is that for attaining the ultimate goal, enjoyment and renunciation give equal results. Useless renunciation simply makes one stone-hearted. 18th question. When is one qualified to leave home? Answer is, when a person's propensity becomes totally introspective, then only he becomes qualified to leave home. If he leaves home before that, then there is a danger of his falling down. With that, we complete 69th chapter and move on to 70th chapter, which is called Association with Women. First question. What is association with opposite sex? Answer is, a man's attachment for a woman and a woman's attachment for a man is called association with opposite sex. By chanting the holy names of Krishna while giving up attachment, a householder can achieve ultimate goal of life. Second question. Is association with women detrimental to devotional service? Answer is, when there is no marital relationship and one converses with a woman with evil intentions, then this is Stri Sangha. This is sinful and detrimental to devotional service. Third question. What should a person who desires to attain pure devotional service give up? Answer is, those who desire to attain pure devotional service should totally give up the association of non-devotees and women. Fourth question. What is the purpose of marriage? Who are engaged in animalistic activities? What is the mentality of a person who is attached to spiritual life? Answer is, those who possess a material body made of flesh and blood are always inclined to associate with women. To minimize this inclination, the marriage ceremony is recommended. Those who wish to get free from the codes of marriage are almost like animals. But those who wish to get free from the codes of marriage are almost like animals. But those who have crossed beyond the rules of this natural inclination by the association of devotees and the strength of their service, and have thus attained attraction for spiritual subject matters, for them associating with opposite sex is very insignificant. Fifth question is, who are actually Stri Sangis? Answer is, those who are attached to associating with women are called Stri Sangis. The materialists who are fond of gold and women, the Sahajiyas, balls, signs, and other so-called religious-minded people who are greedy after women, as well as women-owing tantrics, are all examples of Stri Sangis. The main point is that those males who are attached to females are all said to be Stri Sangis. The Vaishnavas by all means should give up the company of such Stri Sangis. This is the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sixth question, is a Vaishnava householder licentious? Answer is, a Vaishnava, whether a householder or a renunciate, is desirous of transcendental happiness. A householder Vaishnava always works together with his wife for the purpose of achieving transcendental happiness. Although engaged in all kinds of work in this way, he never becomes licentious. In this way, he remains free from women's association throughout his life. He totally gives up illicit intimate speaking with women and mundane licentious mood in licit association with his wife. Seventh question is it good to become licentious? Answer is, one should never become licentious, for it ruins everything. Eighth question, is associating with his wife a limb of devotional service for a householder? Answer is, for a householder associating with his wife is not a limb of devotional service. Therefore, it has been accepted as sinless as long as one uses it to maintain his family life. Ninth question, how should women devotees give up bad association? Answer is, it is essential for women devotees to give up the association of their non-devotee husbands. It is very difficult to consider the non-devotees as husband. This illusory enjoyer acts like a bull and proudly considers himself as the husband. 10th question, what is the harm if a tinge of material conception enters into the worship of Hari? Answer is, according to pure Vaishnava philosophy, the male practitioners of devotional service should worship Hari in a separate way, away from the group of female practitioners of devotional service, and the female practitioners of devotional service should not allow the male practitioners to come near them. Worship of Hari is fully spiritual activity. A little bit of material conception can spoil everything. 11th question. 11th question is, whose association is most detrimental to devotional service? Answer is, associating with those who are fond of women is most detrimental to devotional service. 12th question, what is the atonement for a renunciate who purposely sees a woman? Answer is, if a Vaishnava who is in the renounced order of life deliberately sees a woman, then he should atone by drowning himself in the waters of the Ganges in Triveni in order to become purified in his future lives. With that, we complete 70th chapter and move on to 71st chapter, which is called The Desire for Material Fame. First question, what is the main purpose behind artificially displaying symptoms of ecstatic love, such as shedding of tears and standing the bodily hairs on end? Answer is, you have practiced shedding tears, jumping and rolling on the ground. You often fall on the ground unconscious. This is, however, purely a drama to deceive people. In this way, you spread bad association and ultimately get gold and women. Second question, what is most difficult to give up even though one is able to give up almost everything? Answer is, Although one can give up almost everything, it is very difficult to give up pratishtha, pratishtasa, or desire for name and fame. Third question, what is the purpose behind a cheater's imitation of the behavior of great personalities? Does endeavor for imitation last long? Answer is, those who are cheaters try to hide their own nature and attain name and fame by imitating the nature of great personalities. But such imitation does not last long. Their own natures certainly get exposed within a few days. Fourth question, is verbal humility the proof of giving up desire for fame? Answer is, until we can give up desire for fame, we cannot claim to be Vaishnavas. Verbal humility alone will not do. I often say I am not even qualified to become a servant of the Vaishnavas. But I think that by hearing this from the audience will respect me as a pure Vaishnava. Alas, the desire for fame does not want to leave us. Fifth question, in which anartha do the peace-loving people fall into even after giving up family life? Answer is, the peace-loving people give up family life and accept renounced order of life because they think that the householders are more prone to desire for name and fame. But at this stage of their desire for name and fame becomes even stronger. Sixth question, why is the endeavor for attaining fame most abominable? Answer is, the endeavor for attaining fame is most abominable among all endeavors, although it is abominable to become unavoidable for many people. Seventh question, what means do the cheaters adopt in order to achieve fame? Answer is, in order to achieve the spiritual master's appreciation, respect from the devotees and ordinary people, praise by holding grand festival, and in order to get their work done, many people take to cheating propensity and artificially display the symptoms of ecstatic love, such as dancing, perspiring, shedding tears of love, rolling on the ground and shivering. But actually they do not possess any symptoms of ecstatic love within their hearts. Eighth question, why is it improper to proudly identify oneself as a Vaishnava? Answer is, if I think that I am a Vaishnava, then I cannot become a mani or not expecting any respect for myself. The desire for material fame will then pollute my heart and I will go to hell. We complete 71st chapter here and move on to 72nd chapter, which is called cheating propensity. First question is, what is kutinati and what is its result? Answer is, the phrase kutinati has two words, kuti and nati. Persons who have a mania for cleanliness always find ku or bad in everything. In other words, they take bath in a pond, and since there is a place for passing stool next to the pond, they always think bad about the pond and spend their whole day in discussing about this. They cannot discuss any good subject matters. Mania for cleanliness is an example of kutinati. Those who are affected by this cannot think of any place in the whole world as pure, cannot think any time as auspicious, and cannot accept any person as pure Vaishnava. When they see any activity of a pure devotee which is opposed to the principles of these smarthas, they immediately disassociate with such a pure devotee by considering him a non-Vaishnava. This is an example of nati or negotiation. To not accept the remnants of the deity from the Lord installed by the devotees from lower caste is also an example of Kutinati. As long as Kutinati is prominent in one, he cannot achieve any happiness from eating any foodstuffs. Kutinati is one kind of mental disease. As long as one is influenced by this, it is very difficult to achieve devotional service to Krishna. For a person who is influenced by Kutinati, it is extremely difficult to serve and associate with the Vaishnavas. With that, we conclude today's session and we will continue hereafter in the next session. My sincere obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev and the divine couple Sri Radha Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.